What's going on, guys? This is Aaron from Departures Capital, and we're here with Scott Melby, President, CEO, and Director of Uranium Royalty Corp. It's a pleasure to have you on today, Scott. How are you doing?
I'm great, Aaron. It's great to be with you today.
Yes, I'm excited to be chatting about the company, about the uranium sector. It's definitely one sector that's performed very well despite these extremely turbulent times in the market. So can you start by telling us a bit more about Uranium Royalty Corp and what you plan to achieve?
Yeah, so Uranium Royalty Corp is a royalty and streaming company that was formed on the Toronto Stock Exchange in 2019, listed on the NASDAQ 2 years ago. And it's really to provide uranium exposure to investors through the royalty and streaming model, which is become a very popular investment in base and precious metals. So big companies like Franco-Nevada, Wheaton Precious Metals that allow investors to have interest in uranium mines in a diversified manner without taking specific risk in individual companies and equities.
Yeah, I think that's really the key point there with your business model. So onto the business model. I mean, it's very different compared to other traditional, or you could say conventional plays on uranium. Can you tell us a little bit more about the advantages that this business model carries versus the other companies?
Well, one, we are an experienced team. So our small team has decades of experience in uranium mining, marketing, development, exploration. We're going out and we're doing due diligence, and we're selecting companies to add into our portfolio, which currently sits at 18 uranium interests in North America and Africa. But it provides the investor diversified exposure to those companies' operations. As they develop, mine, get into production, we cash flow, and our investors benefit from that. So it has some of the best elements of an equity investment in a particular individual uranium mining company. It has some elements of an ETF, which spreads risk over several companies, and even has some elements of the physical uranium investments that have also become very popular in our space, like Sprott Physical Uranium Trust or Yellowcake. So we kind of provide all those things in one investment.
So now let's talk about royalty streaming while we're on this topic, the benefits and what Uranium Royalty Corp brings to the table in terms of specifically royalty streaming.
Well, we're a very efficient investment in the uranium and nuclear energy story, in that typically we have top line revenue line interests in mining developments and existing operations in the space. So we're typically isolated from the costs of inflation, capex blowups that are so common in the mining industry. Basically, if our companies and our portfolios produce and cash flow, we get paid. So we don't own the mines, we don't have huge workforce, we don't have large G&A, and the portfolio that we have can grow exponentially with essentially the small team and G&A that we have assembled. So again, it's one of the most efficient companies in the resource space. When you think of revenues and cash flows per employee, I think we're at the top of any industry for that matter.
I think in these high inflationary times, that's a huge advantage, you could say, because a lot of companies are struggling with that. So you talked a little bit about experienced management team. I want to give you the opportunity to talk about the management team, your level of experience, and also why it's so important to have a strong management team.
Well, it's the most important thing that we can do is our due diligence when we look at a potential investment to add it into our investors' portfolio, is that we scrub these projects from the geology, the mining plan, the geopolitics, even the ESG, health, safety, and environment aspects of particular operations. And if these projects pass all those thresholds, they can be included into our portfolio. So in my case, I have 40 years of experience in the uranium and nuclear energy industry. I've been with 3 of the 4 largest uranium mining companies in the world in senior management positions. I've bought uranium with nuclear energy company in nuclear power plants in Arizona, and even brokered and traded uranium with regards to the physical market for uranium. So our experience goes on to others, the colleagues of mine that have been with companies like Cameco in Canada for decades in exploration, mine development. So again, we're doing the legwork for investors to really scrub the universe of potential companies that have the ability to develop their operations, go into production, and fill a very growing gap that we see between uranium demand globally, which is growing in a robust manner again, and mine production, which is currently at a structural deficit.
So we know that uranium right now, this sector, has performed well compared to many other sectors. Why is now such a key time for investors to take a look at Uranium Royalty Corp specifically, and what sets you apart from your competitors?
Well, it really is the right model, but we're also in the right industry because uranium is the fuel for nuclear energy. And we've seen a combination of things that are really seeing growth in nuclear generation again. We've seen 69 reactors globally come online around the world in the last 10 years. We have 60 more under construction. And now we see the beginnings of the small modular advanced reactors that are more akin to aircraft carrier or submarine reactors that have been so successful in the US Navy. We're seeing those deployed in a way to deliver carbon-free, reliable electricity. We really are seeing growing acceptance from the political scene, both right and left, conservative, Republican, Democrat, environmentalists, industrialists, all like the fact that nuclear power delivers carbon-free energy, but it does so 24/7 with very high capacity factors. So it's a great complement to grids that are heavily, I would say, burdened by intermittent wind and solar. It's also a great hedge against volatile natural gas prices. And so it's not surprising we're seeing nuclear power growing. And what's happening now, though, is that the nuclear fuel cycle and the mining industry has to play catch up because we've seen an industry that's been oversupplied with inventories following the Fukushima events. Those conditions have completely flipped the other way to where we now see a very desperate need for new mine production coming in the years between now and even 2030. So it's a very ripe environment for us to invest in those companies, come alongside them with royalties and streams and share that exposure to investors.
Definitely. So finally, can you comment on the current state of the uranium market? What's caused this recent run up? I know you mentioned a couple factors, but let's go a little bit more in depth in terms of your thoughts on the market and where do we go from here?
Yeah, well, it's not surprising that uranium is the spot price for uranium is up over 100% in the last 2 years, and that probably puts it as the most attractive commodity in the world today, both in terms of that price increase and the supply and demand fundamentals, which would indicate further increases in the price of uranium. Again, that supply and demand balance is really driving the spot price increase, but we also have geopolitics. For example, in the United States, the largest nuclear fuel market, we get 50% of our uranium for 20% of our electricity from nuclear power from Russia, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan. With the events in Ukraine, the Russian invasion there has really put in question whether we want to rely on uranium and energy resources or critical minerals from places like Russia or China or Kazakhstan. So it's put a need on the Western markets, Canada, the United States, Australia, to really increase their nuclear fuel industries, and that means more uranium mining. So it's not surprising the industry is in a real swing, and we're seeing investors really come back. I know investors have made a lot of money in uranium in previous bull cycles. Well, we're probably in the first or second quarter of probably the greatest bull market cycle in nuclear energy history. So it's great timing to get in at the beginning of what's an exciting time for nuclear power and uranium.
And I'm excited to continue covering it. So finally, before I let you go, Scott, where's the best place for investors or prospective shareholders to find out more information on the company? How should they contact you?
Okay, so on the TSX in Toronto, we are traded under URC. Under NASDAQ, we are UROY, UROY, and you can go on our website at uraniumroyalty.com and get more information on our royalty portfolio, our physical uranium investments, and some of our plans for the future.
Well, thank you, Scott. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to continuing to cover your company and hopefully have you back on in the future.
Great. Thank you, Aaron.
If you like these videos, kindly hit that subscribe button and the bell for notifications. Drop us a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. And finally, always remember, Departures Capital is for information, education, and entertainment purposes only. Don't buy or sell a stock because you heard it on here. Buy or sell a stock because you've done your research, you've done your thorough due diligence, and you're making your own personal investment decisions for yourself, this video is not financial advice. Furthermore, this video may or may not have been sponsored by the companies that we've profiled within this video, and we may or may not own shares of any of the profiled companies in this video. If you want to know the full disclosure details, check the description down below along with thoroughly reading our disclaimer. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video.